It's a lot quieter in Larry Joel now than it was a couple hours ago. Old times here at Wake Forest, kind of back to life in some ways, but Duke turned back the clock too. They turned back the clock to November, and they did it with a new lineup. I'm News and Observer sports columnist Luke DeCock, our Duke beat writer Steve Wiseman. And Steve, the lineup made a difference.
It certainly did. I mean, A.J. Griffin gave him a little bit more height in there as he replaced Jeremy Roach. Roach came off the bench, gave him some time too, but Griffin and Banchero combining for 46 points were really the difference for the game for Duke. They started to look more and more like the team we saw before this pause they had.
And A.J. Griffin has given Duke a huge lift off the bench the last couple of games. Now he gets a chance to start, and really they needed it against Alondes Williams, Wake Forest star, who had a pretty good game himself. I think one of the big things that we saw tonight was Jon Scheyer has been Duke's interim/acting coach before, but he'd never done it knowing he was going to be doing this job next year. What did you see from him tonight that maybe was a little different than last year against Boston College?
Yeah, as you mentioned, last year at home they didn't have any fans. It was a whole different situation, but so there's a lot more energy tonight than you saw last year on TV when they played Boston College. But he did this job knowing that he's going to be in this job full time here within a couple of months. By April, they hope this will be his job going forward every game from this point forward for a while. So yeah, I mean, he was in charge. He said Nolan Smith had to help him kind of rally with the scouting report and everything. It was Jon Scheyer's scout. So it's just kind of his first step into it in this situation where he knows this is going to be his job and this is what it's going to be like going forward.
I thought it interesting that Scheyer had the Wake Forest scout for this game. And when they found out Mike Krzyzewski wasn't going to be able to be here because of illness, he kind of had to dump it all on Nolan, who he said had to cram on Wake Forest. I think in the big picture with Duke, they obviously didn't play well against Georgia Tech coming off the COVID pause. Got kind of nipped by Miami at the end there, a game they really should have won at home, having the lead in the final minute. This felt to me like they're past that. This was more like the Duke team we saw that beat Gonzaga.
It was, yeah, especially that stretch late in the first half and the early part of the second half when they turned a tie game or a 2-point deficit into a 20-point lead. I mean, that was the high-level basketball, again, that we saw against Gonzaga and against Kentucky earlier this year when they were playing at their best. And, I mean, it was they should have won the Miami game had they played defense at the end of all things. They giving up a lead at home doesn't happen very often, but so now they're kind of back in their groove a little bit, right? And they hope to have Coach K back for Saturday against NC State, and then they have to go to Florida State on Tuesday. So there's more tough, ACC games coming up here, but it's a groove they had to get back into, and I think they feel a lot better about themselves now.
Duke feels like they're back, and honestly, at Wake Forest, it feels like Wake Forest is back. It's a better ACC when Wake Forest basketball is relevant. I think we're getting back to that point. For Steve Wiseman, I'm Luke DeCock.